Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation on Section GG, the Do's and Don'ts. My name is Annalisa Torres-Aquino, and I am the Director of Clinical Compliance for Aspen Therapy, and I will be guiding you through today's brief presentation. By now, we should all be aware that in October of 2018, there were some changes in the GG assessment items. Aspen Therapy has completed several rounds of training with our evaluating therapists and FRCs to ensure accuracy with GG reporting. Recently, the clinical compliance teams from Aspen and Arbor conducted random audits across our facilities, and we analyzed the data. We looked at 16 total items for OT and 37 total items for PT, coming from the evaluation and discharge summary documents. This is the image of the document we created to analyze the data that we collected. You can see that we compiled GG scores from the eval and the discharge GG, as well as from the eval and DC measures on the therapy documentation. Our audits focused on several things. We were looking to see that the GG scoring was properly coded according to the GG crosswalk that we provided in earlier training sessions. Your FRCs have a copy of this document within each department. We were looking to make sure that there was supportive clinical documentation from Section GG scoring. Specifically, do the therapy documents match from what is being scored in Section GG? If an item is scored on the GG assessment, is it also scored on the corresponding eval and discharge summary? And were all scored items actually tested? Remember, we cannot infer for Section GG scoring. We were looking to ensure that there was proper supportive documentation for prior level of function on the eval and that the corresponding documentation entered into Section GG matched. There are two places on the evaluation that your clinical compliance team will expect to see expanded information on prior level of function, either in the area labeled prior living environment or in the area assessment summary PLOF. Here are the screenshots of these items from our point of care platform. By clicking on the notepad icon in the right-hand corner of these sections, it will allow you to free type important information on your client's prior level of function. If you can see the cursor of my mouse here, this is the notepad icon. So let's discuss what we found and the quickest ways to fix it. We found that Section GG is being completed for unscheduled discharges. A few examples of what an unscheduled discharge is when a client leaves against medical advice, when your client passes away, or when the client is discharged to the hospital. Some simple solutions to this error is to have good communication about the reason for discharge, to end the track with the proper reason for DC, to complete your documentation as soon as possible, and when ending a case, to be sure to uncheck the planned discharge box to keep from triggering the Section GG in your hot list. This arrow here is pointing to the planned discharge box that you will see when either you or your FRC is ending the case. The next major thing that we found during our audits was inconsistent coding for prior level of function. Either there was no supporting documentation in the eval, or GG scoring didn't match what was documented in the evaluation. We saw crosswalk coding errors like coding of unknown on GG when a prior level of function status was clearly documented on the eval. We also saw our clinicians coding a client as needing some help on the GG prior level of function, but then documenting that the client was previously independent at home. Here is a quick view of the prior level of function crosswalk for Section GG. It's down here on the bottom. The quickest way to fix this error is to make sure that you are completely and thoroughly charting and doing your review and documenting prior level of function in either of the previously mentioned areas of the eval. We also recommend that you double check your coding for accuracy. When in the point of care platform, you can click on the information icon to expand the GG descriptors. Now, for those of you that are using laptops or tablets, there's this small little information icon right here. By clicking on that icon, you will expand to this larger table here so that you can see what the corresponding GG scores mean. We found that there was some confusion with the non-functional GG scoring codes, specifically 1, 7, 9, 10, and 88. Either these items were functionally scored on the evaluation or DC summary, but then given a non-functional score in section GG reporting, like here in this little example. Your clinician scored that the client was totally dependent, but then gave a non-functional score on GG of 10. Or there was some confusion with the meanings of the non-functional scoring items between Optima and section GG. Here is a screenshot of Optima's definitions for these items, as well as a screenshot for GG reporting definitions. Evaluating therapists should have a good idea of the definitions of each of these items. So when you are in the point of care platform for Rehab Optima, if you hover over what the functional scoring item is, it will give you an expanded definition of the meaning of those items in Optima's terms. And this here is just another screenshot of the section GG. There are several ways to fix these coding discrepancies. Review the definitions of each code and select the appropriate items in both Optima and on the GG assessment. If a task is attempted and scored as dependent or total assist, the corresponding GG code is 1. If a task is not attempted, then you would either select GG code of 10 for environmental limitations or GG code of 88 for medical conditions and safety concerns. If your client did not perform the task previously and it will not be addressed, then the task is not applicable and that is a GG code of 9. If a client refuses, select GG code 7. Another area of concern that we found were discrepancies between the functional assessment data and the goal status. In this example, the clinician scored standby assist for bed mobility and various transfers, but then documented supervision for the current status on the goal. So let's discuss this screenshot a little further in depth here. This is a portion that was taken from the goal building section in a sample of documentation. You can see for the current status here, your clinician scored that the client was supervision. On the functional assessment portion, in that same document, each of these items were scored as standby assist. This is probably the most prevalent example of some of the errors that we were seeing in section GG here. A simple solution to fix this error would be to use buildable goals whenever possible and appropriate. Rehab Optima is designed to pull the functional assessment score into the goal as you are building it. Customizable goals will require that the therapists double check for accuracy between the functional assessment scoring and what is entered in for goal status. Another area that was the cause of significant discrepancies with scoring was generalized coding by category. Generalized coding was often not accurate and consistent with the coding that was entered into the GG assessment. In this example, the client was listed as a max assist on evaluation, but was coded as dependent on the GG scoring. So again, let's further discuss these slides. This here is from the functional assessment portion of our documentation. You can see that transfers was just listed as a gross max assist. There's no breakdown here of what each type of transfer was scored. When you look at the information that goes over to MDS on our data sheets, sit to stand was scored as a 1. Chair to bed and bed to chair were scored as a 1. Both of those, when you look at the crosswalk, equal dependent, okay? And then toilet transfers and car transfers were scored as an 88, which is one of the not tested codes. Nowhere in the evaluation did the therapist document on any of these scores. So not only is the coding crosswalk wrong, our documentation is missing pertinent information to justify our GG scoring. It is imperative that our evaluating therapists are using the embedded GG coding within the eval and discharge documents whenever possible. This here is a screenshot of what the embedded GG coding looks like. This is from the OT section labeled self-care. And you can see in the point of care platform, you can enter in your prior level of function, you can enter in your current function, and then you can go ahead and select admission and begin entering your GG assessment scoring here. Because not all items could be embedded into the evaluation, we recommend that our therapists use the GG icon within the frame of the eval to enter the remainder of the GG data that needs to be scored for your specific assessment. This currently only affects our PTs and the GG mobility assessment. Some of the items that are on the GG assessment are seen on both the PT and the OT evaluations. So wheelchair mobility, some bed mobility. So for my PTs, when you're looking at the very top portion of your evaluation in the point of care platform, this red arrow here is pointing to the GG icon that you can click and quickly enter the mobility assessment to enter those scores that are not embedded inside your evaluation. We found some pretty significant discrepancies on those assessment items that span across disciplines. We recommend finding an effective communication method to share and compare these items with other members of your team, or to use a written communication tool to share your scoring. Some teams may choose to use the previous Section GG reporting tool that was first rolled out at the start of GG reporting. It is also very important that the FRC takes the time to double check these items for coding accuracy. During our audits, we found that therapists were still using inferred scoring. In this screenshot of one of our audits, you can see that the clinician documented gait training 20 feet with wheeled walker with min assist, yet they proceeded to score 50 feet with 2 turns and 150 feet without the supporting documentation. When entering GG scoring, we must remember that we can only score what our client actually did during our session, not what we think our client is capable of doing. There were some additional concerns that surfaced as we were analyzing our audit information. Quite often, therapy documentation is not addressing those functional items required in GG scoring. Specifically, stairs, walking with turns, picking up objects from the floor and uneven surfaces. Prior to discharge, those with appropriate mobility should have these functional assessments properly performed and documented. If these items were recently tested by another clinician in the last 3 days and not formally addressed on the discharge, then a clear note should be written in the DC summary to document the status. Again, I'll refer to that notepad icon that we discussed earlier on in this presentation. As with all things, there are some special circumstances. There are times when a discharge is planned but very abrupt. In this circumstance, code appropriate items as a 10. This is an exception, not a go-to rule. Many of our facilities do not have 12 steps. During my last ANAC webinar, the presenter stated that many listserv discussions state that they are assessing this by having the client go up and down 4 steps, a total of 3 times without a rest break to score this item. Please document in the comments section of your evaluation or discharge summary if this is how you are obtaining a score for this item. So going forward, here are some questions to consider. Why is it important to code properly and to provide supportive documentation? How will GG scoring affect facilities once we enter the era of PDPM? And what tools can we use for data collection and communication? As we enter the new era called PDPM, we must realize that our treatment models must remain client-centered and functionally driven. We must practice at the very top of our clinical licenses and skill sets, and documentation is elemental in supporting our delivery of service. I would like to thank you for attending our session. All inquiries regarding today's session can be directed to atorres@aspentherapy.net. Thank you again for your time and attendance.